Hey guys, this is Lowman02. I'm doing something significantly different today. So, I have, not in my videos, but been decently outspoken against the 1v1 Commander leagues and challenges that are presented online are available for us to use on MTGO. As I think the format is, in a lot of ways, broken inherently. And what you have in front of you is probably one of the more broken decks in the format. It's a partners list, so essentially you start with 9 cards. And, this deck right here is not one of my design. The only proprietary blend I have in here right now is a Lotus Cobra over a Bloom Tender. I believe this list was developed in concert between several players who, have been point leads inside the league, and then the community challenges online, to include Spencer Bot, who you just saw, message me in Discord, as well as Punch and Ello. So I'm a pretty avid 100 card player, a Highlander player, but I am not an avid 1v1 player. I played it when Tasker was still kind of big in the format, but never really competitively. Because I just felt like, there was oftentimes just best decks, and the format just was not diverse. It felt like, when the blue decks, to include Baral and Tassiger, were kind of in the lead, you had a bunch of, you had those two as basically the lead natural strategies of the format, and then you had a bunch of decks trying to hate them out, like you had main deck Pyroblast. I don't really know what happened in between that point in time up to now, where you have Tamina and Thrasos, the Triton, whatever this dude is, card drawer, Triton Master, I believe. But now you have this deck, and this deck is significantly oppressive. So, like I said, I have a decent background in 100 card and Highlander play, but not as much in 1v1. The last time I actually played, Commander regularly, the decks looked more like this. So you see a very light interaction set in this deck. I mean, it's only got 3 Wrath effects, just only a couple counter spells in it. But really, it's just a combo control deck that generally looks to have speed because of the vast amounts of artifact mana. I think if you add up the artifact mana in this deck plus the actual lands, which is only a count of 34, you have about 49 mana sources. So the deck tends to be exceedingly fast and tends to end games in unfair ways like Mind Twist, Entomb, Mindslaver, Goblin Welder, Slaver out, probably win the game. Necropotent is just an infinite, not an infinite draw engine, but a very oppressive draw engine in 100 card. The Recoup Yawgmoth's Will package that you can get with Intuition. So, this style of nonsense right here is what I was used to in Commander. It's a much more high-powered deck, but a lot less interactive. I think a deck like this that you have in front of you would actually probably die to the 1v1 list I just showed you, just due to the raw volume of interaction the 1v1 list has, and its ability to control in the early game. Whereas, the older, EDH or, Commander, before 1v1, was the land of Soul Rings and big stuff, Mana Vaults, Mana Crypts, so very fast mana, so oftentimes interaction was eschewed. But, this deck generally will tend to fall apart to, one Duress or one Inquisition of Kozilek, and, it's going to be drawing, trying to find a new way to enable its broken play style. I'm going to go to a quick pause, guys, and then I'm going to jump into the gameplay and kind of review my take on 1v1 Commander, and we did do a playthrough with the Thrasos and Tamina right here. And I'll give you my take on it and why, or what I think of the format, and where I think it probably needs to go, or what it probably needs to evolve into to get more consumer buy-in for WoTC, and also generate a format that is playable in a wide variety of archetypes. And on any given day, any given archetype could win. I mean, it could be combo, control, aggro combo, there are so many different types of decks and ways to play this game that I think limiting yourself based upon having a best set of commanders, that kind of force specific decks to be played. And I got it. There are decks designed to beat this deck. I played against, I think, one of them today, had Blood Moon and Armageddon in it, and, I just Inquisitioned them and got rid of their Blood Moon, or Thoughtseize them and got rid of their Armageddon, or Gerard's Verdicted and got rid of their Armageddon plus another card. So, those decks are out there. I think, in general, those decks tend to be weaker to pretty much anything else that is not this deck. And even against this deck, I think they're ill-favored because like they're looking for about 3 to 5 hate cards that will just generally tend to win them the game for free. But if they don't get those cards for free, or if they don't resolve them, then they still generally will lose. So quick pause, guys. I'm going to jump into some of the gameplay, and we'll go through the league we played, and I'll kind of give you my assessment of how this format plays out from a relative layman to 1v1, and where I think it needs to go. Alright guys, back, and we'll be covering the first game here. So I believe this recording will likely get broken because I believe we do play Meddling Mage. Right now we're playing against Bruce Tarl, Boorish Herder, and Akiri Lineslinger. This makes me think this is probably like a Blood Moon / Armageddon deck. I believe this is kind of one of the decks that was developed as a predatory strategy against what I am currently playing. I feel very comfortable with this hand. It has creature removal, has a Meddling Mage to stop one of the two commanders, or if we get a chance to see inside their hand any cards that we want to stop. We have a Spell Snare on the draw, which is generally pretty strong, and then we have a Liliana. Plus we have our two commanders, which should be able to accrue us some card advantage. Opponent goes ahead and I believe plays down an equipment. Leonin Bolas. I guess there's probably there's synergy with the Akiri Lineslinger here. It kind of allows the deck to play out as an aggro / aggro control deck. Leonin Bolas just seems like a very low quality card to me though. It's an awesome card in its draft set. I believe that was new for Exia, but I'd have to double check. Yeah, does it say on here? No, it doesn't say on these, of course. But not probably powerful enough for a format like 1v1. Look at my opponent's hand. My opponent's hand has basically some removal and some point damage. 3 pieces of removal and or 5 points to my dome. Their hand's not great. So I'm not exceedingly worried about it. But I do want to stuff them on mana efficiency. So like they're going to be able to remove my stuff, which I'm not as concerned about. With all the spells they have in hand. But what I really want to do is ensure that their commanders are essentially uncastable. Every time they cast them, I destroy them before they can actually get value off of them. Their hand seems okay, though. Draw to a Swords to Plowshares, which is great because it's an additional piece of removal for me to deal with their commanders. As expected, they go ahead and cast out their Akiri Lineslinger here. I just go ahead and get that with the Spell Snare. Play out the Meddling Mage. I believe at this point I named Bruce Tarl. And unfortunately, MTGO is going to freeze. So I named Bruce Tarl. They don't have a mana-starved hand. They aptly save their Chain to the Rocks and Chain Lightning to try to deal with my commanders, which enables me to resolve a Liliana on the following turn, which forces them into a position where they really need to get pressure on us. They cast a turn 4 Akiri. We're able to remove it with the Swords to Plowshares. Eventually get a Memory Lapse, resolve the Thraxos, the Tamina, get an attack in with the Meddling Mage while they're tapped out, draw into our first extra card, find a Training Grounds, get a Training Grounds down, play Thraxos on turn 5, draw a card off of them, and at that point they go ahead and concede. Unfortunately, the game, broke because of Meddling Mage, and these naming cards tends to do this. So if you have Sorcerer Spyglass, Pithing Needle, Phyrexian Revoker, any of these cards, unfortunately, break recordings in MTGO. I guess I should have caveated this. These are all going to be recordings of games. Due to the fact that it took 6.5 hours to play a 5-game match set, in League. I didn't literally sit by my computer and wait. I just, left it on full volume and walked around and did everything else I had to do during the day because it takes forever to get a game of Commander. Another thing you're going to notice is we play some similar faces throughout this tournament. Matter of fact, we only play 2 players in our 5-game match set of this entire league. Alright guys, quick pause, and we'll be back for a game 2. Alright guys, back. So, this is our opener. This hand is very risky. But here's my thinking. I don't know their hand initially, but I see they have 99 cards in their deck, which puts them on 1 commander. And I put them either on mono green or probably Brea. They are indeed on Brea. So this hand, if I'm able to get the birds down, because I have the play here, if I'm able to get the birds down turn 1 and the birds stick, I feel very comfortable developing this hand. One of the things that sold me on it is Training Ground, because if you're able to get Thraxos down with Training Ground, even on 4 mana, you're able to draw 2 cards for basically free. Your mana base continues to develop. Just taking that ability and taking it from 4 to 2 is very powerful. It's not likely they have any Wrath effects, and they run a lot of like nonsense cards in the Brea deck, like artifacts like rocks and stuff like that just produce mana that really are not that interactive in the initial part of the game. So my thinking is, if I get birds down on turn 1 and it lives, I'm going to be able to duress them plus leave up Mana Tithe, and hopefully I'll draw into land and I can play something else out. Probably one of the riskier keeps in this entire match set, but I didn't really want to mulligan to 6 on the play. I think the hand was good enough. So I do go ahead and duress them here. See, their hand is full of garbage. They have, Ancestral Visions. They did have a Wasteland, which kind of sucks because we're down a land right now. They go ahead and Force of Will our Noble Hierarchs are trying to take us off mana here, and I just leave up my Mana Tithe. My opponent really doesn't have much going on, though. They do play out a Bob. I go ahead and Swords to Plowshares it. Find an Elves of Deep Shadow, still leaving up Mana Tithe. They go ahead and find their Volcanic Island, play out a Baleful Strix, which is fine. It really isn't doing much. At this point, I do finally find a land. I go ahead and get Training Grounds online. It's possible that I wanted to try to resolve the Thrasos here. I really didn't want to go for it, though, because I feel like I can feign / bluff a lot more just in case they've drawn something more. Now, at this point, I am going to play the Thrasos out and just leave up mana. I have essentially Mana Tithe up plus an activation of Thrasos here. I do go ahead and go for it here, assuming that they're going to try to use their Mystic Confluence that we know they have in hand to try to bounce our Thrasos when we tap down 2 mana. Obviously leave up City of Brass so that I can produce white mana to cast the Mana Tithe here. Go for the draw. They go ahead. They oblige. So they play their 5 mana spell and get owned by Mana Tithe. And at this point, the game is pretty much over. I don't remember if they concede here or not. See, Mana Leak. I keep a Mana Leak because their deck is a lot less efficient, and it does stop up Rhea at this point. I actually don't opt to play out my Tamina here. I just want to draw cards off Thrasos, I think, at this point. They play out some Artifact mana. I see a Smuggler's Copter, bottom it. Go ahead and let this resolve, and my opponent just concedes. They're just like, nope, I'm done. I'm going to activate this thing. If they have nothing better to do with their time, I'm going to activate this thing at a minimum twice this turn, probably leave up Mana Leak. On the following turn, if I found more land, activate it even more times. Like, I'm up to 3 cards. By the following turn, I'm going to be up to 6 to 7 cards. And we knew their hand from the get-go, and right now they do have 2 unknowns. 2 unknowns. I believe they exiled the Ancestral Vision to Force of Will our Noble Hierarch. But I'm pretty comfortable that with 2 counter spells, I can probably stop much of anything I need to stop. Outside of like instant speed removal, like Lightning Bolt or something like that, but I don't think they have it. And they just go ahead and pack it in. Alright guys, quick pause here and we'll be right back momentarily. Alright guys, back, and you see a familiar face here. We get to play against Martin Luther King Director, Milk Driver, I don't know. Milk Director, I don't know what this gentleman's name means, but MLKDIR. We see a Snapcaster on top. I actually bottom this because I want to hit lands. So I have Lotus Cobra, Thoughtseize, Vindicate, and a Sword in hand. Sword's the worst card I have in hand, or the card I really didn't want to see the most. But this hand has a lot of upside. I do bottom the Snapcaster because I kind of want to hit a comes into play untapped land that's not a fetch land for turn 2. So I can play the Lotus Cobra out. If it does not get removed, produce up to 5 mana on my turn 3 with the fetch land. So bottom Snapcaster, they do have the play this time, which is probably good because we're playing against the same deck, obviously. Go ahead and Thoughtseize them, get their Blood Moon. So I think, and I don't know this format exceedingly well, guys, but I think just from looking at their deck, it's kind of set up to be predatory, like I was saying in the first matchup against ours. They have Blood Moon in there, and, I just go ahead and snipe that. And now they have a Leonin Arbiter, which is obviously also going to be problematic because it does slow down my mana development with the fetch lands, so I can't quite do what I want to do with Lotus Cobra here. But I do go ahead and get the Lotus Cobra down regardless here, and hope that it survives so I can, on the following turn, produce 3 mana with my fetch land. Opponent goes ahead and chains my Lotus Cobra to the rocks, which is actually fine by me. They start giving me the beatdown, give me to 26, play out my fetch land, opt to leave up Memory Lapse, and or if they do nothing that relevant, I will just fetch with my land here after paying for the Leonin Arbiter. Go ahead and pay for Arbiter, get a Watery Grave, find another fetch. I'm kind of just like, alright, well, this is going to be slow. But at a minimum, we have both mana to pay for Arbiter and also to Memory Lapse on their turn. They go ahead and beat down for 3 again. Note they've not equipped their pathway arrows yet. They go ahead and play out the Akiri Line Slinger. I pay for the cost on Leonin Arbiter, find a Savannah. Go ahead and just Memory Lapse this fellow. They play out a Memnite, which is not a card that really worries me that much. I just go ahead and fetch here, get the Underground Sea, play out the Thrasos. It could have been more correct. I know their hand at this point due to Thoughtseize, but they did draw into a Lightning Helix, so unfortunately they removed that. I think that was the right line. I could have also just Vindicated there. What I ended up doing here is just Vindicating their land, getting back my Lotus Cobra as a blocker, which is going to force them to remove it, and it also takes them off of mana for Spike Shot Elder activation. They unfortunately have a Shrapnel Blast at this point, which they lose their arrows to get rid of the Cobra. So 2 for 1 to kill the Cobra. They go ahead and fetch and don't find anything because they didn't pay their own Leonin Arbiter cost, which is sometimes an issue with Leonin Arbiter. You definitely want to pay that before you go buck wild with it. We do play out our Tamina. Opponent is trapped on mana at this point. They find a Horned Kopesh. I actually go ahead and double block here if I'm not mistaken because I'm at 8 life and I think it makes sense to trade off resources here. And I have a fetch land in hand, which kind of, I have another fetch land in hand now. And I find a pretty good card here in the form of Palace Jailer. I go ahead and take their Spike Shot Elder, play out a sword, say go, untap 2, draw into a Cavern of Souls. They evidently found something that was irrelevant. They could have equipped up their Memnite with the Horned Kopesh. I'll block it 100% of the time because I don't want to give them more cards. And then on the following turn, I have a whole boatload of mana plus a Teferi, which is at 6. I could bottom something. I could put something back in their library. Like Dispeller's Capsule is not really that great right now, and I would love to have them draw that, but I'll probably just end up using Teferi to draw a little further. So really, the deck just gets a draw engine online and then just wins. I mean, in this case, it wasn't a Commander draw engine; it was the Teferi. In the games prior to Ben, Thrasos tends to be the powerhouse. I think you see him combo with Karoom as well. But with Tamina, I think he's quite decent as well. So anyways, that was this game. Pretty straightforward. I mean, we're at 9 life. Like this is how this format is. We're at 9 life, but our opponent's still conceded because they're so far back on mana. They're at 1 card. We have an engine. We have a boatload of mana, and they really don't have relevant onboard presence to actually close the game out. All right, guys. Quick pause, and we'll be right. Alrighty, back, guys, for game number 4. So we see another familiar face in Autek here, or AU Tech. I don't know how he likes his name to be enunciated. So we're playing against Brea again. This hand is actually pretty good, I think. It has some hand disruption in the form of Gerard's Verdict and Liliana. It has Memory Lapse, and it has Surprise Ramp in the form of Mox Amber after we resolve one of our either one of our commanders. So I have to keep it. Again, on the draw here, find a very good card here in Duress. Go ahead and look at their hand. End up seeing Caves of Koilos, 2 Talismans, a Ravages of War, a Mana Leak, and a Liliana of the Last Hope, or the Last Hope. I end up taking the Talisman of Progress because this card is going to keep them off of double white mana, whereas this Talisman, I guess I could have kept them off of double black as well, but I actually kind of want them to cast the Liliana out so I can Memory Lapse it and then Gerard's Verdict, the Armageddon out of their hand, because I think my mana is going to be very relevant in this game. They play out their Talisman, play out a Skull Clamp, seems fine. Note they do not have red mana at this point. I do go ahead and leave up my counter magic. They do not play their Liliana into it. I just play a tapped land out because I still want to leave up Memory Lapse, and I'm not ready to resolve either the Bitter Blossom or the Gerard's Verdict yet. I go ahead and just play out my land and say go. I'm kind of bluffing here. I kind of want to see how the game develops, and if they try to activate their man land, I would love to kill it. I do go ahead and Inquisition them here to see what's going on, see how their hand has developed over time. They go ahead and cast their Mana Leak on it. I say, A-okay, that's cool, man. I actually probably was going to take Mana Leak. I allow this fellow to resolve, as I'll just probably remove him on my end step here. I pay the full Monty all the life for it because I'd like to leave up Memory Lapse just in case they have a way to stop me. I do take damage off of this and go ahead and play a Bitter Blossom to see if they have any more counter magic. They obviously have a pretty well templated answer against this card in the form of Liliana the Last Hope, but my plan is now to go ahead and Memory Lapse them. They go ahead and try to cast this. I go ahead and lapse it back to the top of their deck, so they're redrawing it next turn. Liliana the Last Hope doesn't scare me on this deck. I do go ahead and take a look at their hand. They have a Palace Jailer, Ravages of War, and Duretti, Ingenious, whatever this guy is, Ingenious Artificer or something, Ingenious Iconoclast. They do resolve their Liliana here. I've deleted their entire hand. They basically have the onboard Liliana, and they're lacking black mana to to cast their or red mana to cast their Brea. So they're basically off the top of their deck, and they have a man land. I do go ahead and start drawing here. I put the land on bottom, find an evasive action. Shields are down this turn. So if they draw very well, they could punish us. They actually vindicate the Liliana. I think it was probably more correct to get rid of the Thrasos. I think the Thrasos is going to be a bigger problem. But I draw very well here and find Jace. Play out the Wasteland, blow up the Manland, attack the Liliana to keep it from ultimating or getting some value. They again kill off my Bitter Blossom, which is basically just doming me for 1 life a turn. I find one of the better cards in the deck once I have Thrasos Resolve, which is Training Ground, and just start going through my deck, going ham through my deck. And I have an evasive action that can basically counter for 4 here. So anything they play that basically any 1-drop will resolve. Anything beyond that will not. I'm drawing 2 cards a turn due to the Jace and allow me to filter through my my top deck, and utilizing 2 mana every turn, as many times as I want with Thrasos to draw additional cards and or scry them to the bottom. So at this point, my opponent on 1 card, knows the game is over, and this is kind of the power of the deck. I think this game highlights the best. Like if you can grind your opponent down to negligible resources. And then, get your commander with protection online. Thrasos will just win games, like, utterly. I initially kind of compared him to, something like Tasigur, except for he attacks a lot worse. But this card is infinitely better than Tasigur, because you actually have control over what you're getting, as opposed to your opponent actually choosing. Outside of the fact that it does cost 2 mana to actually play this dude, which is kind of a downside to it. And they're 2, different colored mana, whereas Tasigur is just 1 mana if you have a decent enough graveyard size. Anyways, guys, we'll go ahead and cut to the last and final match of the league, and I'll give you some of my summaries about the league and what I think of the format. Alright, guys. Well, if this seems like a familiar face, it's because it is. We've played this player 3 times in the same league. Yeah, and that's about it. I ended up giving AU Tech half the prize pool for a first place finish, which the EV on this is actually exceedingly poor. Not to mention the actual time that goes into leaving a league up to play. Like I said, this took about 6.5 hours to actually play out. And that's why I didn't record. There was just too much downtime in between, and I had to use my computer for other stuff, and I had to do other stuff around the house. Just to sit around and wait for this. It's not like a cube where I can actually do a whole draft and play a whole cube in an hour and 15 to an hour and 35 minutes, depending on the deck archetype and the matchups that I pull. What do I think of this hand, though? Going in, this hand's great. I mean, it's got a turn 1 Mother of Runes, which is great protection. And it may not even do that. It may just go turn 1 Noble Hierarch. I don't know. And then you can 2-spell on the second turn. Great removal. Has a Smuggler's Copter to dig through the deck. Really all it's going to be looking for is to produce more mana so that it can get down Thrasos and then just start grinding the opponent out. But obviously, again, we're playing against Brea. But opponent goes in and scoops it. We give him half the prize pool because I really don't care to play this format. I didn't build this deck. I got it from someone else, and I was really just playing it to kind of explore, how WoTC is managed, and how they've promoted the 100-card formats, the 100-card singleton formats that are available on MTGO, and to a lesser extent, Brawl, 60-card singleton, standard singleton. But it's kind of sad because, a quick pause, I'm going to jump into... Actually, I could probably just do this from here. No, I'll do a quick pause. But it's kind of sad to see, the size of these leagues. I'll show you the league size. There were literally only 32 players in the league that I was in, active 32 players in the league I was in. I went and checked out Brawl, or Brawl, rather, not Brawl. They were pretty similar, right? And there's only 28 players in that, You have to ask yourself, why is that? And, you can say cost, because, obviously the 1v1 list can get a lot more pricey. I have pimped out cards in this list, and there are a lot more expensive kind of chase rares that are played in Eternal formats in 1v1. But the Brawl format should actually be relatively cheap comparatively. The cards are all in rotation right now. So why are folks playing it? Well, I'll tell you right now, guys. It's pretty simple. Anytime you can have a card that is kind of a card, is kind of not. So this card can't be interacted with in standard ways. I can't make you discard it. I can't kill it and it goes away forever. I can't Swords to Plowshares it and have it go away forever unless you allow it to. Which means that you have inherent card advantage. in decks like this. And you're also able to set up the deck in a way that you have, quote-unquote, a one-card combo. Like, I would not call Thassos plus Trading Grounds a two-card combo. I mean, it kind of is. It's a synergy. But in a lot of ways it is. Like, you really can't play Training Grounds in many decks. Like, it would have to be a very, like, narrow deck to play that card. But because of the power of the card in this archetype, you're able to get away with it. It's just kind of like the Leovold Time Twister decks, the Leovold Puzzle Box decks. Like, how good is Time Twister, if you're not playing Broken Mana and you're way ahead on board and way down on hand size vice your opponent? Something like Balance, which is obviously not authorized in this format. Puzzle Box, virtually unplayable. I mean, it's just, unless you're just playing for fun and you want to add chaos to the game, it's a virtually unplayable card. Time Twister, same thing. Like, Time Twister is a build-around card. It's not like a card that's an auto-include in every deck. Generally, the decks that want to run it are the decks that have a lot of artifact ramp and artifact mana. Basically, a higher dead card count a higher dead card count in the permanents, or a higher dead card count in the permanent card type. That enables you to rapidly expend your hand and then do well from replenishing it via effect like Draw 7. Your opponent gets to do it because it's a unilateral effect. So in that style of deck, ideally the deck you're playing against is not as fast or does not have as much permanent mana sources that they can play rapidly, artifact mana. So that all said, I think you look at this format and the inclusion of 1 to 2 cards that you automatically always have available. One obviously leads to some building restraints. Like, there are, I think, generally going to be best decks because of some of the mechanics that are available on certain Legends cards that are available / viable to play as commanders. And you're going to run into situations like this where, like, this deck is just clearly better. I did not get to play this deck in the mirror during this league, but I played it in the mirror, and oftentimes it just comes down to, who can resolve, protect, and initiate the draw engine of Thassos first. And whoever's able to do that will generally tend to snowball into victory very rapidly. And whoever does not will tend to lose very rapidly. So the format tends to snowball quite a bit because of how it's designed and set up. That said, what do I think the fix is? Because I don't want to just give problems. I think the fix is that, at one point in time, there was a format called 100 Card Singleton. It's a format that if you watch my channel regularly, you'll see that I play with a small subgroup of people that enjoy it. Why do we play it? Well, because the metagame is wide. It's very, very wide, very deep. It plays with a larger pool of unbanned cards as well because the meta is so wide. The power level of cards individually tend to be balanced out by the meta. So, like, if you're playing a very powerful Reanimator deck, it has like Entomb and Mystical Tutor and Intuition or something. Cards that are all now not allowed to be played in this format. It'll tend to be balanced because there are other decks that are just going to hose it. Secondly, you in 100 card you play a match and you have a sideboard. So, like, if you're playing an overly narrow strategy, you can bring in complete and utter hoser cards like Stony Silence or for the previous example, Rest in Peace. So I think you tend to end up with decks that more so play what I would equate to an actual game of Magic. This format to me is the one thing this format is going, I guess, is that it is distinguishable. It's distinguishable in how it plays out. I would say 100 card is different that way in that you could probably equate 100 card to playing somewhere between Legacy and Modern Pace, and having a depth or width and depth of format somewhere between both as well. I wouldn't say there are as many viable and strong decks as there are in Modern, because Modern is just exceedingly wide. I would say it's probably closer to Legacy and how wide it is. And let's make that assessment on the Deathrite Shaman ban. For a while, Legacy was kind of inbred, but it should be widening out. And at one point in time, it was a very wide format. But why is there that difference, even though you have a larger card pool than Modern? Well, it's because of the hate cards, that exist, and the ability to just hose certain strategies because you use a sideboard. The other part to it is you get to play a match set. So, like, I won some of these games. I probably got lucky on my draws. I kept one greedy one and got kind of paid off by it. But there are going to be times that you're, even on this is like a 48 mana source deck, you're just not going to have the mana you need, and you're going to have to mulligan to 5 on the play, and you're just going to lose because of that. Because, I'll tell you right now, like 100 card, when you mulligan to 5 on the play, you're generally losing. Like, I can probably count on like 1 to 2 hands how many times I can play a game with 5 cards on the play against a good player and a good deck. And it's probably on 2 hands at most that you're going to generally win those. Even if you play your best, like you just don't have enough to really cinch it. And that's going to happen in 1v1 as well. That's not really a difference. But the fact that you do have sideboards and you do get to play a 3-game match set, I think tends to equilibrate out that variance that can sometimes happen. So anyways, guys, this is my take on 1v1. I played it out just to say I did it and gave it a shot. The deck I played was very powerful. I have no qualms, no arguments about it. There are not really a ton of 1v1 experts. I think I know most of the folks who are probably the lead innovators in the format, and I'll probably get some flack for them for any plays they thought were questionable. But I think in general we played the deck decently well. I think it comes down to a conceptual understanding of how this deck theoretically wants to run, which is actually very simple, and it accomplishes a linear path of progression through, generally speaking, interactive and possibly non-linear means. But the general pathway that this deck wants to follow is stop them, establish engine, protect engine, run the engine. What I mean is, you want to disrupt them initially, make sure they can't beat you or they can't stop you from establishing your engine. You want to establish your engine while having protection for it, protect your engine, and then just start drawing a boatload of cards. Because the deck is primarily made up of interaction, it only has 17 creatures, most of which are just mana providers to draw into more cards. It really relies on its commanders to allow that to continue to happen. So, at one point in time, I believe it was Dave Price, a very long time ago in the late 90s, said, there are wrong answers, there's no wrong threats. Well, in order to have the right answers, you need to have a lot of cards. So that's how this deck tends to progress. Whether you're accomplishing that through, the use of disruption like Duress or Inquisition or Thoughtseize, or using Spell Snare or Memory Lapse just to buy an additional turn to start drawing those extra cards. That's how I think the deck is going to tend to function. And that's I think what makes it very powerful is that it's able to interact in the very early game to either stop progression of the opponent's deck, stop normal progression of the opponent's deck, stop them from stopping you, and then protecting that which is important in this deck, which is the card engine of both the commanders. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. This is definitely something different for me. I don't think I will play 1v1 again. We'll see. I was looking at the challenges. The challenges actually do have a very high EV. You can get a ton of value out of that. The leagues do not. I think I won 8 treasure chests. I took 4 and split with this gentleman here because I kind of felt like bad. And the format itself is not really something that interested me from a grinding perspective, but more so from just getting to experience it. But that's my take on it, and I hope it was helpful if you have yet to play this format. I will say this, I am a huge lover of 100 cards, so if this is what WoTC is going to give us, give it a shot. At least give it a try. Like I said, I don't know if I'll come back, but I do like to support 100 card formats because I think they are deeply interesting and skill intensive. I will say this though, I think the commander takes away from the skill intensive part because the variance of draws will tend to play a larger role in it. Plus, you're not playing a match; you're just playing single games. So as opposed to playing up to 15 games, we only got 5 games here. But that aside, I had a decent time getting to pilot this deck. I got to learn a few things about the format itself. I got a deeper appreciation of Training Grounds in this format. It was one of the more busted cards in the deck with Thrasos. Very interesting. And I hope you guys are at least intrigued enough to give the format a shot if you have the card pool available. And enjoy the content and have fun, guys.